The words didn't just sting. They sliced through the air like a blade wrapped in velvet, designed to wound without leaving visible marks. I stood there in the hotel lobby, surrounded by polished marble floors and chandeliers dripping gold, dressed in my tailored navy suit that cost more than the monthly mortgage payments my parents never thanked me for. And yet, in that moment, I could have been wearing rags, because that was the illusion they wanted. "Get this beggar out," my father pronounced, loud enough for echoes to carry into the adjoining bar area. A few heads turned. Some pretended not to stare, others let their curiosity linger openly. The security guard's hand hovered near my elbow, his expression tight with discomfort, as if participating in my humiliation was something he wished he could refuse, but wasn't allowed the dignity to avoid. My mother's eyes flicked away from mine so fast it hurt more than if she had glared at me. That denial, that refusal to acknowledge what they were doing, somehow deepened the cut. Victoria stood slightly behind them, perfectly poised in her silver gown, lips curled just enough to form that familiar smirk, the one that had followed me from childhood into adulthood, like a shadow I never asked for. It was her winner's smile, the one she wore whenever the family validated her position as the golden child. "My name is Rachel Parker. I'm 35 years old. And this is the moment everything I had tried to ignore finally snapped into focus. Not because of the insult, that wasn't new, but because I realized, with startling clarity, that I had funded the very stage they were using to throw me off. For years, I had been the family ATM, not the successful daughter, not the responsible one, certainly not the loved one, just the account they could tap whenever life demanded upgrades, new appliances, unexpected bills, surprise vacations, weddings, and in Victoria's case, impulsive luxury trips she framed as emergencies of the soul. I funded all of it. They framed it as family loyalty. I accepted the lie because it was easier than acknowledging the truth, that I was financing the illusion of belonging. But what they didn't know, what none of them realized, was that the entire celebration unfolding behind those ballroom doors existed because of me. Not emotionally, not symbolically, literally. The hotel venue, booked under my LLC. The gourmet catering, paid through my business account. The champagne fountain my mother insisted upon, charged to my corporate card. The airline tickets for relatives flying in from 4 different states. My expenses. The beach condo they bragged about as their retirement jewel. Payments made quietly by me every single month. They thought all of it came from my father's supposed retirement package, a fiction he crafted with ease, hiding the truth that his actual pension barely covered their utility bills. They were celebrating in a palace built from money that wasn't theirs, and they didn't even know it. I didn't argue with security. I didn't break down. I simply nodded, adjusted my posture to reclaim what dignity I could, and walked out with quiet, intentional steps. If they wanted a beggar, they could look in the mirror. But I was done donating my silence. As I made my way down the marble corridor and into the cool underground parking garage, the echoes of my father's voice followed me like a ghost. When I finally sat inside my car, door closed, the illusion cracked. My hands trembled, just a little, as I opened my banking app. Catering canceled. $7,200 refunded. Victoria's Maldives honeymoon flights revoked. $12,000 returned. Mom's spa weekend terminated. $4,800 credited back. Beach condo payments reversed into my account. $52,000 in pending returns. Each transaction was like a stitch being removed from a costume they'd forced me to wear. With every cancellation email I forwarded to myself, the facade unraveled further. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my phone was vibrating nonstop. First calls, then voicemails, then messages from unknown numbers. Not a single one contained an apology, just panic. The knocking at my door came next, pounding, desperate, as if the world depended on it. Through the peephole, I saw Jard, my brother-in-law, looking like a man whose life had been set on fire. His shirt was wrinkled, face flushed, hair tousled from running fingers through it in frustration. "You need to fix this right now," he shouted before I even opened the door. "They just canceled our food. The hotel won't release the rooms. Our honeymoon tickets got voided while we were checking in online. I leaned against the door, listening to the frantic edge in his voice. Finally, I opened it just enough to speak, but not enough to invite chaos inside. "Strange," I said calmly. "Sounds like someone didn't verify who actually owned those payments." He blinked, confusion clouding over his anger. "You did this because they kicked you out." "No," I answered quietly. "I did this because they forgot a basic rule. Don't bite the hand that feeds you without checking whether it's holding all the receipts." I held up the folder I had prepared years ago. Thick, color-coded, every contract under my LLC, every payment authorization with my signature, every cancellation clause that gave me sole control. Jard stared at it like it was a bomb wired to his future. "You're punishing the entire family," he hissed. "No," I corrected. "I'm protecting my investment." He couldn't argue with that. He tried, searching for the moral high ground, but he had nothing to stand on. Eventually, he left, muttering about lawyers. Once the door closed behind him, I walked to my desk, placed my contingency folder beside my laptop, and opened a fresh one with a simple label. Inheritance Audit, Phase 2*. For the first time in years, I felt something new, a strange, weightless clarity. They had mistaken my silence for weakness. Now they would learn the difference. I woke the next morning not to peace, but to chaos humming on every device I owned. 32 new emails, a dozen missed calls, texts flooding in waves, each message more frantic than the last. Some were disguised as polite requests. Others were thinly veiled threats, all of them dripping with entitlement. It was astonishing how quickly affection curdled when the money stopped flowing. My mother's email arrived first, written in her trademark passive-aggressive politeness. "We didn't mean what we said. Emotions were high. Can we talk?" No accountability, no apology, just an attempt to reset the game board before anyone noticed the cracks. My father followed with a forwarded invoice from the venue, unpaid, urgent, like I was still his secretary. No greeting, no acknowledgement, just an implied demand. Fix it. Because that's what he believed daughters were for. Emotional labor, financial lifelines, ironing out his mistakes before anyone else saw them. I deleted neither message, not out of kindness. Out of strategy. The next wave came from the extended family group, chat I hadn't been part of in years, yet somehow remained the main topic of conversation. My cousin sent me a screenshot, because there's always a cousin who loves drama more than loyalty, and there it was. "Rachel's always been sensitive. She'll come crawling back. She always does." I laughed, not softly, not bitterly, loudly, the kind of laugh that escapes when clarity is finally louder than pain. I replied to the entire group thread, despite being removed. "Just a reminder, I own the crawl space, and I've changed all the locks." Silence followed, not a single bubble of typing, not a single defense, not a single explanation, because for the first time they didn't know how to handle me. Then came the unexpected email, one that shifted everything. A neatly formatted message from Franklin, my parents' accountant, requesting a meeting to discuss irregularities in their financial records. Specifically, that the payments for the beach condo had not come from their trust account, as they'd claimed, but from an LLC he couldn't identify. Mine. His tone was careful, neutral, but the subtext was obvious. Something didn't match the numbers he'd been told. When we spoke, he was hesitant, like a man stepping into a trap he wasn't sure existed. "They've declared the condo as their asset," he admitted quietly. "Claimed it as an inheritance gift from a private investor, but there's no documentation." "Because it wasn't a gift," I said. "It was an investment, mine." He exhaled sharply, the sound of decades of tax experience colliding with the realization that everything his clients claimed was built on a lie. He asked if I'd be willing to sign a declaration to confirm the actual ownership structure. "Absolutely," I replied. "But before I do that, I need to make one call." The call was to Tiffany, my lawyer, sharp as glass and twice as efficient. Within minutes, she confirmed what I already suspected. This isn't just manipulation, she said. It's documented misrepresentation. Fraud. Potentially. Her tone held no excitement, just fact. But there was a quiet satisfaction beneath the surface, justice in progress. We scheduled a meeting for the next morning. When I arrived at her office, sleek, minimalist, filled with sharp angles and cold steel Dacre, Tiffany already had a thick stack of papers waiting. Cease and desist letters for slander and unauthorized fund usage. A property reassignment filing securing the condo in my name alone, and a formal declaration for tax purposes. You'll want to deliver the cease and desist first, she said, sliding the papers across her glass desk. It establishes boundaries before they try to spin a narrative. Let them spin, I replied softly. They've been rehearsing their script for years. The process server confirmed delivery within the hour. Just like that, the facade of family celebration officially transformed into a legal battlefield. That evening, I received a voicemail from my mother. Tearful, dramatic, familiar in all the wrong ways. You're destroying us over what? A misunderstanding. You always do this. You're so dramatic. If you follow through with this, people will talk. The church, the neighbors, your father's reputation. Her voice trembled as if she were the victim, as if they hadn't publicly humiliated me, as if I owed them my silence to protect their social standing. I listened to the voicemail twice. Not because it hurt, because it proved everything. Appearances, reputation, image, their worship of perception had always mattered more than truth. While the voicemail played, an entirely different notification arrived, one that mattered more than any apology ever could. Account transfer confirmed. Beach condo title finalized. Legal, irrevocable, permanent. Their prized possession, the property they flaunted as their crowning achievement, no longer belonged to them by any interpretation. And the taxes they dodged, filed with penalties. Tiffany emailed. You've closed every door. Want to take it one step further? Yes, I typed back. Full audit. Start with the family trust. I want to know where every dollar went since 2017. What came next was a dissection of decades of entitlement. The trust audit peeled back layers, like a surgeon revealing tumor after tumor. $18,700 marked as emergency home repairs the week I graduated college, actually used for Victoria's kitchen renovation. $9,000 documented as education expenses. Reality, front row concert tickets, and a luxury spa weekend for my mother. $34,000 withdrawn under family medical necessity, used instead for my father's vintage Mustang restoration, the same Mustang he used to brag about as a symbol of his hard-earned success. They had siphoned the trust dry and then called me the beggar. Is this criminal? I asked Tiffany as she reviewed the documents. It can be, she replied, if you want it to be. I didn't want them in jail. I wanted them accountable. We filed a legal motion for financial recompense and trust misuse documentation. They had 30 days to respond. On day 7, silence. On day 11, panic-laced messages from unknown numbers. On day 15, my mother tried guilt. On day 18, my father tried anger. On day 22, their lawyer tried negotiation. A private settlement, $50,000, no admission of wrongdoing, a mutual NDA, an attempt to shove the truth back under the rug. Tiffany laughed when she read the offer. They're desperate. They want to seal the cracks before anyone looks inside. But I'm done being the rug, I said. Decline it. We declined. Day 25, my father appeared in my office, shoulders slumped, pride stripped away, hat literally in hand like a man from an old black-and-white film begging for mercy. You've made your point, he said, but you're about to ruin us. Are you proud? No, I answered honestly. I'm not proud, I'm tired. Tired of paying your bills, tired of carrying your image, tired of being erased while funding your lives. He flinched but said nothing. You called me a beggar, I continued. So I stopped giving, and suddenly everyone remembered what I was worth. He pulled a folded check from his pocket, a blank one, signed. I pushed it back toward him. "This was never about your money," I said. "It was always about mine." When he left, I opened my email to the message I had been waiting for. Preliminary court hearing scheduled. Trust disbursement fraud under review. The date was set. This time, they wouldn't be celebrating under crystal chandeliers. They would be answering to the law. The morning of the hearing felt strangely still, like the world had paused just long enough for me to take a single, deep breath before everything shifted. I slipped into my charcoal blazer, tied my hair back, and stood before the mirror, not to admire myself, but to confirm something important. I looked nothing like the woman they'd tried to reduce me to. No trace of the beggar label they'd thrown at me. No sign of the daughter who once scrambled to keep the peace. I looked composed, grounded, unshakable. A woman who no longer financed her own humiliation. The courthouse air was cold in that institutional, sterile way, designed to keep emotions contained and reality sharp. Tiffany met me at the entrance, her briefcase tucked under one arm like a weapon. She didn't waste words. She never did. She simply gave me a curt nod, a silent message: "You're ready." When we walked into the courtroom, my parents were already seated on the opposite side. My mother's face was pinched, trying and failing to appear dignified. My father's jaw was tight, his eyes darting anywhere except toward me. Victoria wasn't there. Of course she was. People like her loved the drama, but never the consequences. The judge, a stern woman with steel-gray hair, and the kind of posture that suggested she saw through every lie ever told in her courtroom, reviewed the files Tiffany had already submitted. "Miss Parker," she said, her voice calm but firm, "we are here to address allegations of misappropriated trust funds, financial misrepresentation, and asset concealment. Do you understand the nature of these proceedings?" "I do," I replied, my voice steady. My father's attorney stood to speak. He attempted a performance, softening language, reframing their actions as misunderstanding, insisting the family shared expenses informally. He used words like confusion and miscommunication, dancing around the truth as though semantics could erase numbers. The judge's brow tightened. "Counselor," she said sharply, "we are dealing with documented transactions and verifiable withdrawals, not emotional interpretation. Please stick to facts." Tiffany stood next. No theatrics, no embellishments, just evidence. She projected documents onto a large screen, each page a different layer of truth laid bare. Dates, bank accounts, withdrawals, screenshots, emails. Every financial lie they'd told became a line item. Every misuse of funds became a highlighted bullet point. Every claim they'd made about owning the condo evaporated under the clarity of legal ownership records bearing my LLC's name. My parents' lawyer shifted uncomfortably. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she probably hoped would evoke sympathy. My father remained stone-faced, though the cracks in his facade were beginning to show, subtle tremors in his jaw, a twitch near his left eye. When Tiffany finished, the courtroom was silent. Then the judge asked the question that mattered most. "What outcome are you seeking, Miss Parker?" Not money, not revenge, not humiliation, just truth. I stood, slowly, deliberately. "Your Honor," I said, "I'm seeking alignment between record and reality. For years, I was told my contributions were support, donation, help. Yet on paper, those same contributions were disguised as theirs. I want the legal records to reflect the truth, that these assets and funds came from me, not from a trust they misrepresented. I want clarity. I want the ledger balanced. That's all." The judge nodded. "Granted." And with one word, years of imbalance snapped into place. The ruling was clean and precise. Restitution of misused trust funds. Corrections to financial filings. Permanent, legal transfer of the condo to me. Clear record of my contributions. Removal of my parents' unauthorized access and claims. No tabloid drama, no shouting, just justice. My parents didn't speak to me afterward. They walked past me in the corridor as though I were invisible. My mother's heels clicking too loudly, like she hoped the sound would drown out the humiliation. My father's shoulders slumped under the weight of consequences he never imagined would reach him. Outside the courthouse, sunlight struck the pavement in golden streaks. Tiffany handed me the finalized papers, her eyes sharp with approval. "You did well in there," she said. "I told the truth," I replied. That's what made it powerful. Weeks passed, then months. Silence stretched between us like a canyon. No texts, no emails, no sudden emergencies requiring my wallet, no guilt-laced invitations, no sobbing voicemails asking for help, just absence, the kind that becomes its own kind of peace. One afternoon, a thin envelope slipped under my front door. No address, no signature. Inside, a single photograph from the night of the banquet, the same night everything imploded. Everyone dressed in shimmering silver and navy. Crystal chandeliers glowing. Smiles posed for the camera. And in the background, blurred but unmistakable, me turning away. A frozen moment marking the exact second the illusion shattered. On the back, in Victoria's unmistakable handwriting. This was the moment it all fell apart. I stared at it, not with sadness but with clarity. Because she was wrong. It didn't fall apart that night. It simply became visible. I fed the photograph into the shredder and watched the illusion peel apart in thin paper ribbons. And then something extraordinary happened, not dramatic, not loud, just quietly revolutionary. I opened my laptop, created a new folder and titled it Parker Foundation *. For women putting themselves through school without family support. The initial funding came from the condo sale. The condo that once symbolized their status now became the seed of someone else's freedom. 6 months later, I still hadn't heard from them, not a word, and that was the final answer I needed. Some family ties don't break. They dissolve. Cleanly, quietly, permanently. And sometimes, that silence isn't a loss. It's a boundary finally honored. A full circle completed not with revenge, but with reclamation. Not with destruction, but with truth. Not with bitterness, but with peace. The golden restaurant lights still flickered in my memory as if mocking me, as if the warmth of that place continued to burn cold against my skin. I could still hear the laughter surrounding that long dinner table, the same laughter that had pierced me like invisible needles. My father's voice echoing, "Tonight, we celebrate our real daughter," had carved a wound so deep that even silence couldn't heal it. After that night, I simply disappeared from home. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3, no one called. No one checked in. No one asked if I was alive, struggling, or even breathing, except for one message from my mother. "Your sister's celebration was wonderful. You missed it." I stared at the screen and laughed at myself. How easily they erased me from their lives. As if I were nothing more than a name written in pencil, meant to be rubbed away any time. But life was not going to end that way. I drowned myself in work, 24 hours, 7 days, meeting after meeting, project after project, client after client. The same me whom my family had labeled weak, less successful, less important. That same me was now building something solid, something powerful. I didn't post anything online, offered no updates, no flashy highlights. I just worked in silence, letting my actions make noise. Then came the turning point. An invitation arrived for the city's biggest business award ceremony. My company was nominated for Outstanding Innovation. I didn't believe it at first. I had worked so hard in isolation that I never realized how far I had climbed. But the real shock came the next morning when my family called. My mother's excited voice came first. "We're all coming with you tonight. Our daughter is going to win." I stayed silent. Then my sister grabbed the phone and laughed. "Are you seriously upset? Come on, it'll look good if the whole family comes with you." I took a deep breath. Her voice still carried that superior tone she always used with me. And quietly, without anger, I replied, "Support is something you show when someone is falling, not when they start rising. I needed you then. You need me now. I don't." Silence. For the first time ever, they didn't know what to say. That evening, when I entered the award venue, the bright camera flashes almost blinded me. Reporters rushed. Photographers clicked. People whispered my name with admiration. And then they called the winner. My name. The applause shook the hall. As I held the trophy, all those painful memories flooded back. My father's dismissive smile, the sting of being unheard, the humiliation of being compared. The host handed me the microphone. "Who helped you reach this success?" he asked. A wave of cameras zoomed in. My gaze slowly drifted to the audience, and there they were, my family. Their faces pale, shocked, almost frightened. I smiled calmly and spoke. "The people who helped me reach here are not the ones who praised me. They are the ones who underestimated me, hurt me, and made me believe I was not enough. Because when love is missing in your life, you learn to fill that emptiness with hard work." The hall erupted in applause. My family looked down, ashamed, unable to meet my eyes. Even my sister, so used to standing under the spotlight, stood frozen in its shadow. Outside the venue, reporters surrounded me again. Flash after flash, question after question, and then a soft voice behind me. "Daughter." I turned slowly, my father, same suit, same expression, but his eyes this time held no arrogance, only regret. We're sorry," he said quietly. "We were wrong." I looked at him for a long moment, and surprisingly, I felt no anger, no revenge, just clarity. "With time, everyone realizes their mistakes," I said softly. "Forgiveness is easy, but returning to the same place is." He lowered his head. And that moment, not the award, not the applause, that was my true victory. Not losing my family, but finding myself. As I walked to my car, the city lights shimmered outside like distant stars. I sat quietly, watching them blur past the window, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace, wholeness, freedom. Sometimes, losing your family is the price you pay to finally discover your own worth. And that night, for the first time in years, I smiled. A real, unbroken, self-made smile.